Let's start the podcast. Your average fight fan.
All right, welcome back, guys. What is up? Welcome to episode 8, UFC Fight Night at the Apex. We're going to discuss a little bit of Derek Lewis versus Alexei Oleinik, and then we're also going to get into the big card coming up, UFC 252, Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier 3, the trilogy. It's going to be a big one. I'm pumped for that. So let's get it right into it. Let's start over with the main card, this past weekend's card. We're going to start off with the first fight on the main card, which was Beneil Darius versus Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman. That was a lightweight bout, which means they were fighting at 155 pounds. Beneil Darius was coming in with an 18-4 record. He was ranked at number 14 coming in. He's the Iranian-American who fights out of California now. If you don't know anything about him, he is a pretty scrappy dude. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He likes to fight standing most of the time if he can. He's a Muay Thai style fighter. And he was coming in on a 4-fight win streak after just before this fight. He did finish the last 3 fights were all finishes. So he's a good dude. He's a good fighter. He was, like I said, fighting Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman. That's a funny nickname, Hot Sauce. He had a 14-3 record. He was unranked. He's from Knoxville, Tennessee, and he was coming off back-to-back wins. He's actually a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. But, yeah, he's a good dude too. He's actually pretty. He's a scrappy guy as well. So the Vegas odds had them at minus 170 for Beneil Darius and plus 140 for Scott Holtzman. If you saw the fight, you know that Vegas got this right in terms of the odds, because Beneil Darius did get the victory, so he was the favorite. It ended pretty quickly, though. Beneil Darius was pretty dominant in this. He outlanded Holtzman 36-11. Obviously, that's not a lot of strikes, but when you're talking that's all the strikes in the whole fight, you know, it's a lot. You know, you're talking about more than 3-1. But like I said, yeah, it did end pretty quickly. It was over in the first round. Towards the end of it, you know, Beneil Darius was landing a lot. Like I said, it wasn't a long fight. It was pretty quick. And again, 36-11, so 36 total strikes were landed for Beneil. But those 36 were, you know, they were good landed strikes. But what really ended it completely was a spinning back fist. Now, the cool thing about that was he landed a spinning back fist walk-off KO, which means he knocked him out and said, all right, I'm not even going to wait till the ref stops it. I'm just going to walk off because it's over. And the ref stepped in and finished it. So that was pretty cool. So like I said before, he did have 3 finishes in a row coming into this fight. So that makes it 4 finishes in a row. And like I said before, he was on a 4-fight win streak. So now he's on 5 wins in a row. So big congrats to Beneil Darius. Big victory for him. And I don't know if they're going to move him up in the rankings, only because Scott was unranked. So I don't know if that helps or does not help Darius go up in the rankings, or in this case, go down a number. In other words, we want him to move down from 14 to 1, right? So we'll see what happens. Usually Tuesday morning is when those rankings come out. So we will see if that number changes or if it stays the same. Either way, big victory for him. Congrats to Darius. Okay, moving on. We had a bantamweight women's bout at 135 pounds. That was Yana Kunitskaya from Russia against Julia Stoliarenko from Lithuania. Kunitskaya, if you know who she is, she fought for a title recently at 145 pounds, but then moved back down to 35, which is her natural weight. She's currently ranked at number 8 at bantamweight. She has a record of 12-5. Julia is unranked. She has a record of 9-3. Kunitskaya was coming off 4 wins in her last 9 fights, so not the greatest of records recently, but before that it was pretty good. So, you know, there's not that many girls at 145 pounds. So her few victories within her last, you know, like I said, 4 wins out of 9 was enough to get her to a title shot. It didn't go well. She did not win the title, but after losing the title fight, she moved down at 135. She's been doing pretty well there. So Julia Stoliarenko Like I said, record of 9-3 from Lithuania. She's coming off a 5-fight win streak. Pretty big. That's especially in a women's division. That's tough to do. Yeah, she's a Burmese. I was about to say Burmese python. She's a Burmese boxer, which is a Lethwei boxer, and she's also a BJJ style fighter. Julia was the underdog here at -180 according to Vegas, making Yana Kunitskaya the favorite at -240. Well, it wasn't a glorious fight, but it definitely was a dominant victory for Kunitskaya. I mean, she outlanded Julia 209 to 30 in total strikes. Even got a takedown in there. That's a pretty big difference in total strikes. I mean, you're talking almost 200 difference. That's a lot. 209 total strikes. I don't know if that's a record, but if it's not, it's pretty close. Like I said, she got a takedown in there. So overall, it was a good fight and a good win. She's, like I said, ranked at number 8. So with a win, regardless of fighting a unranked fighter, she's still staying in the mix at 135 pounds. So, maybe a couple more wins and she can get in that title contention race, which is what I would assume she wants to do at 35 since she's already done it at 45 and didn't go well. So congrats to Yana Kunitskaya again from Russia. Good victory. And she stays in the top 10, which is obviously always good. I guess now the goal is to move into the top 5 and then, again, obviously top 3 and so on and so forth until she gets a title shot. So congratulations to her. We're going to go ahead and move on now. We're going to go to the middleweight bout, which is 185 pounds. This was Maki Coconut Bombs Pitolo. These nicknames are so good sometimes. Maki Pitolo, he was taking on Darren Stewart, which they call him the dentist. You can't imagine why they would call him the dentist. He's a fighter. Yes, so Maki Pitolo has a record of 13-5 coming into this. He's from Hawaii. He's unranked, as was Darren Stewart coming in. He was also unranked. But Maki Pitolo, after back-to-back losses, he's actually 3-1 in his last 4 fights. So that was a good turnaround for him. Obviously, you never want to go back-to-back losses, but if you can change that and go 3-1, in the next 4 fights, then that's always good. And Darren Stewart, like I said, the dentist, he's from London, England. And like I mentioned before, he was unranked. We will see if that changes. Again, those rankings come out on Tuesdays, so we'll see what happens there. But as of now, both these fighters were unranked coming into the fight. Darren Stewart, after going 7 straight wins, he did not do so well in his last 10 fights. He only won 4 of his last 10 fights. So, yeah, not great. But with all that being said, Vegas had Darren Stewart as the favorite at -165. And making Maki Pitolo the underdog, he was at +145. So not crazy odds, but just enough to be the favorite. But I got to say, Stewart really did his thing in this fight. It wasn't a long fight. It ended pretty quickly, just like the last one did. He got it done. I think it took maybe 3.5 minutes, 3:45, something like that. And he finished the Hawaiian, which is awesome. He ended it via guillotine choke in the first round. Huge win for him because, like I said, if your last 10 fights, you've only gotten 4 wins, it's always great to get a finish. A finish is a lot better than getting just a normal decision win. If you get a finish, you're setting an example. You're putting a staple on your record, and that always helps. So getting a finish, and especially in the first round like he did, very, very good finish. So and also, like I told you before, he's from London, England, and he's not very well known here in the States. So getting a finish like that, it's going to get people watching you, and it's going to get people to start following you. Like, for example, his social media is probably blowing up right now. Now, does that mean blowing up to millions and millions of followers? No, but maybe he has, 2,000 followers and maybe jump to 4,000 or whatever. Anything helps, especially when you're a fighter and you want to get your name out there. So if maybe his Twitter and his IG and his Facebook, all that stuff, he didn't have that many followers, maybe now he does, and that's what he's looking for. He wants to get his name out there so you can start calling out people and so on and so forth. So again, once you get a big finish like that, it's always going to help no matter what. So congratulations to Darren on a big victory and a really cool finish with guillotine choke. Congratulations, sir. All right, moving on to the co-main. This also was a middleweight bout. This was Chris Weidman, the All-American, taking on Omari Akhmedov, who they call the Wolverine. Chris Weidman, if you don't know, if you're an MMA fan, you should definitely know who he is. But if you don't know, He was coming in with a 14-5 record. He is now 36 years old. He's the former middleweight champion. He's from Long Island, and he fights from there. Now, I just told you he was the former middleweight champion. He's now unranked. Like I said, if you don't know, you're probably asking, why is he unranked if he's the former middleweight champion? Well, his last few years have not been great. And when I say have not been great, I mean they've been absolutely terrible. Really bad. Now, let me give you a brief backstory on Chris. After entering the UFC as an undefeated fighter, he went on to become the undefeated champion. He was 13-0. He beat Anderson Silva, who was the unbeatable, knocked him out, got the title. I don't remember how much after that, let's just say within a year or so, rematched Anderson Silva, again, the unbeatable fighter. People still to this day call him the greatest fighter of all time. Beat him again. This time it was from disqualification because Anderson Silva leg kicked Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman checked the leg kick, and Anderson Silva snapped his leg in half. If you haven't seen that, you really need to. Google that. Anderson Silva breaks leg. It's brutal to watch, but it happened. After that, he went on to defend his title multiple times until he was maybe 13-0. Yeah, I think he was 13-0 before he got his first loss. He had an awesome career up until that point. I mean, this guy has beaten so many guys. Now, I just want to go into the past 4 years of his life have been absolute hell. His only win in the past 4 years came against Kelvin Gastelum via arm triangle. That was a really good win because Kevin Gastelum was in the top 5 heading towards a title shot at that moment. But the list of people that Chris Weidman has beat is unbelievably good. You would never think that this guy had such a nightmare over the last 4 years of his career. I'm gonna name just a few guys that he's beaten, and you'll be like, damn. He's beat Uriah Hall, Alessio Sakara, Tom Lawler, Damian Maia, Mark Munoz, Anderson Silva twice, like I just mentioned. He beat TRT Vitor. If you don't know who that is, it's Vitor Belfort when he was on testosterone replacement therapy. That's a tongue twister. And yeah, and like I said, he beat Kelvin Gastelum. So just Anderson Silva twice, TRT Vitor, Mark Munoz, Damian Maia, and Kelvin Gastelum, just that alone, and then you add Uriah Hall into the mix, that's a pretty damn good resume. Now, after that, everything went downhill. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I don't know what changed, but it just was not good. Oh, man. Tough. Then you got the guys that beat him. I mean, he didn't lose to anybody that was not in the top 5, He lost the title to Luke Rockhold. That was a stoppage victory for Luke Rockhold. He was stoppage due to punches. Then he got knocked out by Yoel Romero with a flying knee knockout. That was brutal. Then he lost to Gegard Mousasi. That was also due to knees. That was a stoppage. Then he got knocked out by Jacare Sosa. And then he got knocked out again by Dominic Reyes. So, just not good. Not good. Sad story for Chris. However, he is now 36 years old, and he believes that now is the time for him to go back into the title run, try to get his belt back, and then retire. That's what his plan is. Do I think he's going to achieve that? Honestly, no, I don't. I don't think he will. I hope he gets a few wins. I do. I hope he, stacks up wins and ends his career on a good note. But do I think he's going to get even close to the top 10, the top 5 and fights for a title? No, I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. But like I said, he was going against Omari Akhmedov, who has a 20-4 record. He's from Dagestan, Russia, and if you know anything about Dagestan, Russia, those guys are absolute monsters. Omari was ranked number 11 coming in. He moved from Dagestan, Russia to South Florida. He trains out of American Top Team in Coconut Creek, which is my backyard. He was on a 5 wins in his last 6 fights, the 6th not being a win due to a draw. Chris Weidman was the favorite here at minus 130, making Omari the underdog barely by plus 100. But let's get into what happened in the fight. What can I say about this fight? First of all, I want to say great job to both fighters. It was a good scrap. But at the same time, I felt like I was watching a YouTube video in slow motion. I don't know exactly when Chris Weidman went from being this absolute monster, a force to be reckoned with at 185 pounds, to being what I saw on Saturday night. I guess being 36 and not getting any younger, it's like the old saying, Father Time is undefeated. And I'm sure all the recent knockouts don't help either. But it really looked like these guys were just going through the motions and trying to get through these 3 rounds. They were exhausted. Both of them were completely gassed after the middle of the second round. It's like, seriously, guys? You guys are trying to get to a title shot. Come on, seriously. I don't want this to sound like I'm some tough guy who's going to beat both of these guys up. That's not going to happen. It's far from reality. I know who these guys are. I know what I am. I'm not a fighter. Yeah, if either one of these guys hit me once, anywhere on my body, I'm tapping out. I'm done. But going from watching Chris Weidman beating everybody, win the title, defend it multiple times, he's on top of the world. He's everywhere. He's on ESPN. He's on, he's got the title. He's king of New York. To this, I got to be honest, it's kind of depressing. Because I'm from New York originally. I lived in Long Island for 15-16 years before I moved to Florida. I'm still, fans of New York teams. If ever there's a New York fighter, I root for them. It's depressing. It really is. I'm happy that he won. But man, it was not a great performance at all. It was not. For either guy. I'm not just bashing on Chris. And I don't want this to sound like I'm bashing Chris. I feel bad. I want Chris to win. But either way, congratulations to Chris Weidman for the win. Hopefully he looks better in his next fight. Like I said, he's 36. Maybe a break from fighting for a little while might help. Maybe take some time off, rest up, heal up. Maybe he's got like CTE or something. I don't know. I really hope not. But then again, he's 36. So taking a break might not be the best option. I just hope he looks better. He comes back looking fresh and motivated again after this. In case you didn't know, he did win by decision. Congratulations to Chris Weidman on the win. And let's see what happens. Let's see where his career takes him in the latter part of his career. Like I said, he's 36. So he's not getting any younger. The ladder is, it's only getting more difficult. So let's see what happens. All right. And now for the main event. The heavyweight bout between Derek Black Beast Lewis and Alexei the Boa Constrictor Oleinik. Black Beast is 35 years old. He stands 6'3". He's from Houston, Texas. He came in with a record of 23-7. Out of those 23 wins, 18 of them were knockouts, and actually one of them was submission, which you wouldn't really expect from him. But yeah, he's got 18 knockouts, 1 submission. He was ranked number 4 coming in. I got to be honest, this guy's one of the hardest hitters in the sport, not just the UFC, the whole sport. This guy can knock just about anybody out. He was coming off back-to-back wins. But however, he was coming off back-to-back wins, but his last 8 fights, he lost 3 of them. So he was 5-3 in his last 8 fights. Now, granted, one of those was a title fight. Like I said before, people tend to get to a title fight and not be ready for it. I don't think he was ready for that title fight. I'm glad he got it. He deserved it. I just don't think he was ready for it. But he's had a very, very good career. He's beaten a lot of tough guys. I mean, he's beaten Jared Rosholt, Travis Brown, Gabriel Gonzaga, Roy Nelson. He beat Martin Tybura. He beat Francis Ngannou, which, if you haven't seen that, most boring fight in the century, maybe the most boring fight in UFC history. He beat Alexander Volkov. He beat Blagoy Ivanov, and he also beat Ilir Latifi. So he's beaten some real tough guys. Some of the guys he shouldn't have beat, he beat them. Yeah, if you don't know about Black Beast, he's a really good fighter. Like I said before, he was going against Alexei Oleinik. They call him the Boa Constrictor. You'll find out in a second why they call him the Boa Constrictor. He stands 6'2". He's 43 years old, so obviously he's not getting any younger. He's at the very, very end of his career. He's born in Ukraine, but he fights out of Moscow, Russia, and he also trains in, again, American Top Team in Coconut Creek. His record is 59-13. No, you did not hear that. You did not hear that wrong. I did say 59, 5-9. He's got 59 victories. Out of those 59 victories, 8 of them are knockouts. And make sure you hear this correctly, 46 of those victories are by submission. 46 submission victories for Alexei Oleinik. He's been fighting pro for a little bit now, a couple of years, since 1996. He's, like I told you before, he's from Ukraine, but he was raised and trained a very, very long time in Russia. And in Russia, there is a martial art called Sambo. If you don't know what Sambo is, you should look it up because it is a very, very, very dominant type of martial art that is trained in Russia. I don't know if they train anything other than Russia. I could be wrong about that. It might be like an Eastern European thing, but in Russia, it's a very, very common martial art. And they don't have belts like you would in a traditional martial art, like karate or jiu-jitsu or, taekwondo. They don't have a belt system. They have a ranking system to where Oleinik got to the second highest ranking in this martial art, which is called International Master of Sport. This guy's been training just about his entire life in Sambo, but he also holds a black belt in both Japanese jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, making him, in my opinion, a complete mixed martial artist. Now, obviously, due to 46 submission wins, he prefers to grapple. But he can obviously hold himself standing up as well. Like I said, he holds a black belt in Brazilian and Japanese jiu-jitsu. Japanese jiu-jitsu is primarily a standing sport, combat sport. But he was ranked number 10 coming into this with back-to-back wins. However, all that being said, Vegas still thought that Black Beast was going to win. They had him as the favorite at minus 200, which made Oleinik the underdog here at plus 155. What happened in the fight? You must be curious because you probably haven't seen it, have you? It's Monday. This fight was on Saturday. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. If you don't know much about Black Beast, I suggest that you search for him. Look for him online. He's a very funny dude. He's fun to watch. And I'm not just saying that just because he's a fun to watch fighter. He's funny in the ring. He's funny outside the ring. He's funny on social media. He's funny in interviews. He's a funny guy altogether. The two things that come to mind, obviously one was the one from Saturday night where he said, "Yo, I got to take a shit, man," before the interview started. And the other one that comes to mind is after he won, I don't remember who he beat, but he won, and Joe Rogan steps into the octagon and says, "Hey, why'd you take your pants off?" Because at that moment, Derek Lewis had taken his shorts off in the octagon on TV. So Joe Rogan steps in and goes, "Hey, Derek Lewis, congrats on the win. Why'd you take your pants off?" And Derek Lewis's answer was, "My balls was hot." This guy's unbelievable. He's so funny. He's got a great sense of humor. Check out his Instagram, check out his Twitter. You'll understand why I'm saying that, and you'll know what I'm talking about when I say that he's a funny guy. But going back to this fight, if I'm being honest, I really didn't know what was going to happen. This is a tough fight. I knew it could have gone one of two ways. It could have Derek could win by knockout because he can knock out anybody, and that's just true. But I also knew that it could end with submission, and that submission was obviously going to be Oleinik, right? Because like I said, he had 46 wins by submission. Like I told you before, Oleinik is a master on the ground. And if you saw the fight, you know that in the first round, the fight actually did go to the ground. And Oleinik had Derek in a bulldog choke, and that's a very difficult choke to get out of. It reminds me of when Robbie Lawler fought Ben Askren. And Ben Askren had Robbie Lawler in a bulldog choke, and some people say that it was stopped prematurely, and then other people say that Robbie Lawler was completely out and woke up after the ref stopped it, or right before the ref stopped it. So that bulldog choke can completely put you out. It doesn't look like a choke because it's not under the neck or under the chin, but it can put you out, and that's the choke that Oleinik had Derek Lewis in on Saturday night. Now, again, if you saw the fight, in my opinion, I was pleasantly surprised at how good that the Beast did on the ground against just an experienced grappler. I mean, this guy, like I said, he's got 46 wins by submission. And because as this is happening, I'm thinking to myself, okay, the last time I saw Derek Lewis with a good grappler on his back or on the ground like that, it was when he was fighting for the title against DC and he got choked out. Now, to Derek's credit, that was the first and only time he's ever been submitted. That's big news. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, what is he going to do right now? Because it's not looking good, right? Because you're in a bulldog choke against a guy who has 46 submission wins. But I don't know if you saw the fight or not, but if you did, you know that Derek Lewis was able to hold himself. He was holding his own on the ground against Oleinik. You know, he was able to get out of the bulldog choke and then reverse the position. He was able to get top position, do his thing a little bit, do some ground and pound, and get back to a dominant position. But I think that because he was able to do that, you know, get back to a competitive position, and, you know, he was being competitive on the ground against just a monster on the ground, I think that his confidence skyrocketed, and he figured, I don't have to worry about this guy on the ground. I think my grappling has gotten to a point where I can defend myself. And I think at that point, his confidence was so high that he was ready to go 5 rounds with this guy. However, when he got to the end of the round, his corner came in and was like, nah, nope, that's not what you're going to do, bruh. You're not going to do that. We're not going to do this because this guy has 46 victories by submission, and we're not going to take that chance. What you're going to do is you're going to go in there, you're going to punch him in the face, and you're going to end it. No more grappling, no more ground, no more ground and pound, no more none of that. You're going to go in there, you're going to knock the guy out. That's exactly what happened. I think it was maybe the first or maybe even the second punch that landed, put Oleinik on his butt. Black Beast rushed him, tried to finish it, you know, got a dominant position, started punching his face, throwing hammer fists, and the referee stepped in and stopped it. That's a huge win. Huge win for 2 reasons. One, because like I said, you were in a bulldog choke against one of the best submission artists in the division. And 2, you're in the running to get back at a title shot. And due to the fact that if DC wins next Saturday, that title will no longer be in the hands of anyone. Because technically he's supposed to retire. So he's going to vacate the title, right? So what does that mean? That means that if he did win this fight and he did get a title shot, he would not be fighting DC again. He'd be fighting somebody else. It could be Ngannou. It could be Stipe. It could be Blades, Curtis Blades. You never know who it's going to be, but at the same time, it's not going to be DC. So that's good for him because he's already fought DC and lost. So it wouldn't be a great story to tell the guy that got submitted by DC, you know, last time it wasn't very competitive and you want to fight him again. So it opens up more doors for him. That being said, as soon as the fight was over, Curtis Blades tweeted and called out Derek Lewis. Yeah, if you saw Curtis Blades' last victory, you know what Curtis Blades can do against somebody who's not a wrestler. He was going to just... All right, so here's what happened. Curtis Blades fought Alexander Volkov. And Alexander Volkov is primarily a stand-up fighter. He is a Muay Thai style fighter, and Blades is a college wrestler, Division I, All-American. Very dominant. And he pretty much just beat Volkov by taking him down repeatedly and laying on him for 5 rounds. Now, if you saw that fight and you saw the post-fight press conference, then you know how Dana White feels about Curtis Blades' performance and the way Curtis Blades plans on getting to the top. He's not going to have that. Not having it. Go search for what Dana said about Blades at the post-press conference for Blades Volkov. Trust me. So the problem is, standing in front of Derek Lewis in the division, besides Curtis Blades, because Curtis Blades is ranked number 3, is Francis Ngannou and DC. DC, like I said, is going to retire if he wins on Saturday, which I would assume he's going to retire either way. I don't think he's going to fight again if he loses. If that's the case, I personally think that Derek Lewis should fight Francis Ngannou. I know what you're thinking. That was the worst fight you've ever seen. It was the most boring fight of the century, probably the most boring fight in your whole existence. But I think And yes, fans got duped out. Fight was terrible. None of them pulled the trigger. They were both super hesitant. They were both hesitant of getting knocked out. Derek was probably hesitant because he knows what Francis can do. He can knock out anyone. And I think Francis was hesitant because he was coming off the loss against Stipe, and his confidence was just down in the dumps, and he just wouldn't pull the trigger. However, I think that has now changed. Things are different now, and I think that if this fight happened again, it would be a very good fight, not just for the division, but for the fans to get what they really should have gotten in the first fight. That's my opinion. I believe that if they fight again, that this fight will be fireworks, and it's going to be the banger that we expected it to be the first time around. So that's what I think should happen, and that's what I hope is going to happen, and I really, really think that is a good fight for Dana to make. Well, Dana and the matchmakers, the magicians there in the office, I think that's a good fight for the UFC at this time. So let's see what happens with that. I really hope they put it together. Hopefully they do. All right. That's that for last weekend's UFC Fight Night. Let's move on to what's coming up this coming Saturday. This coming Saturday, we got UFC 252, which is a really good card. The most obvious is, yes, Stipe Miocic, the champ, against Cormier. This is going to be the third time they do this. But besides them two, which is an absolute crazy fight, you also have Herbert Burns, which is Gilbert Burns' brother. Gilbert Burns is the one that was supposed to fight for the title on Fight Island against Kamaru Usman. He tested positive for COVID. He was not able to fight for the title, so Masvidal stepped in. We all know how that went. But yeah, Herbert Burns is on this card, and he's a monster too. He's not ranked at the moment, but he's a really good fighter. Him and his brother both are just blowing up right now. They're both really good fighters. Herbert fights at 45, where Gilbert fights at 70. So hopefully that's going to be a banger. We also got Felice Herrig on the card. We got Ashley Yoder on the card. We got Jim Miller. We got Marab fighting John Dodson. We got Marlon Vera fighting Sean O'Malley. And we also got, of course, Stipe and DC fighting their third fight. So let's start with, like I said, Herbert Burns, who's on a 5-fight win streak. He's coming off a submission win over Evan Dunham via rear naked choke. Right now, he's at 11-2 on a record, 8 wins by submission. Like I said before, they fight at 45. This is going to be a featherweight fight. He's fighting Daniel Pineda. Pineda's record right now is 26-13. He is unbeaten in his last 6 fights. He's making a UFC comeback. So he fought in the UFC a while back, and after 6 years of not being in the UFC, he's coming back, and this will be his comeback fight. He has 18 wins by submission. So this is going to be a good grappling match, I suspect. Although Herbert Burns is a beast on the stand-up too, so we'll see what happens there. They're both really good grapplers, and we'll see what happens there. But that's going to be a good one. After that, we got Felice, the little bulldog, Herrig against Virna. Man, I'm gonna butcher this one. Virna Jandiroba. That's probably not right, but it looks like Virna Jandiroba. Felice Herrig is now 35 years old. She's from Illinois. Her record right now stands at 14-8. She's ranked number 15. She's coming off back-to-back losses, unfortunately. She did not have the best 2 fights, but then again, she did fight Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Michelle Waterson, who were both absolute monsters. But before that, she was actually in a 4-fight win streak. So she's been around for a pretty long time. She's been fighting pro since... Actually, she's been fighting amateur since 2004. Took a little bit of a break, and then she's been fighting pro since 2009. So she's fought a lot of people, a lot of tough girls. Along the way there, she's ups and downs, but she's definitely a good fighter. I could definitely say that. She's only lost to very high-level girls or big-name girls. I'm not going to get into the losses, obviously, but she's a very good fighter, skilled and experienced. I don't know if I said this, but this is going to be at 115 pounds as a strawweight bout. And like I said, she's ranked number 15, and Virna is not ranked at all right now. So this is, there's no implications for top 10, top 5, title shot, nothing like that. Yeah, Virna is 32 years old. She's from Brazil. She has a record of 15-1. Damn good record. She's on a 14-fight win streak, and then the only loss came to Carla Esparza by decision. And then she went on to beat Mallory Martin. That was by rear naked choke. So she's a pretty tough girl. She's 15-1 with losing to Carla Esparza, who was the ex-champ, and then you come back in your next fight and you win again. And let me tell you one thing. Vera has 12 wins by submission. So 12 of her 15 victories are by submission. So in case you're doing that math, that's an 80% finish rate. She's finished 80% of her opponents. This girl's tough. So it's going to be a tough fight for Felice. Remember, coming off 2 losses, you definitely do not want to get a 3rd loss in a row. Nobody ever wants to do that because now you're talking about your job again. So 3 fights in a row, you lose. Could be tough. You never know. So we'll see what happens there. Again, number 15 ranked against the unranked Brazilian. We'll see what happens there. So I would imagine because Felice is a wrestler, but she also has good stand-up, that she's going to hopefully try to keep it on the stand-up. She's going to try to keep it on the feet if she can, keep the fight standing without getting taken down. If she can defend the takedowns, I mean, she might be able to do something about that, but we'll see what happens there because I know Vera is going to try to take her down and submit her. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a good fight. Good fight on that one. All right, moving on to a heavyweight bout. We got Chris Dalkas versus Parker Porter. Chris is 30 years old. He's coming out of Philly. He's got a record of 8-3, but 8 of those wins come by knockout. 7 of those 8 wins come by knockout. So not a bad record if you got 3 losses and 8 wins. 7 of the 8 come by knockout. Not too shabby. Parker Portis is from Connecticut. He's also got 8 wins, 3 of those by knockout, 4 by submission. His record is 8-5. We'll see what happens there. This is probably going to be a pretty, if I had to guess, a stand-up banger because Chris Dalkas, 7 knockouts. Parker Portis, 3 knockouts. He does have 4 submissions, so he might be able to take the fight to the ground, but we'll see what happens there. Directly after that fight, you got a strawweight bout between Ashley Yoder and Livinha Souza. Ashley Yoder's nickname is the Spider Monkey, and Souza's nickname is the Brazilian Gangster. That's kind of cool. Ashley Yoder is 32 years old now. She's from California. Her record is 7-5. She's got 4 wins by submission. Livinha Souza is 29 years old from Brazil. Obviously, the Brazilian Gangster. Her record is 13-2. Very good record. 8 of those wins come by submission, 2 knockouts. Not too shabby. That's a damn good record. We'll see what happens there. Ashley Yoder's a pretty tough girl, regardless of what her record says. She's a tough girl. Been around for a little bit now, so we'll see what she can do against Livinha. Yeah, that's going to be a good fight. I'm actually curious what's going to happen on that one. Let's see what happens there. 32-year-old Yoder against 29-year-old Souza. Both have good nicknames, the Spider Monkey and the Brazilian Gangster. I like those. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm a sucker for a good nickname. So anyway, we'll see what happens on that fight. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a good scrap. But let's move on. Let's move on to the lightweight bout between Jim Miller and Vince Pitchell. Jim Miller, of course, is the super veteran legend from New Jersey. He's actually 36 years old now. Wow. Same. I'm 36, so he's the same age as me. He's got a record of 32-14. He's he's unranked, man. That's crazy. This guy's an absolute legend, and he's unranked. I mean, it's no fault of his, but man. Anyway, 18 wins by submission. That's huge. 18 wins by submission. Wow. This guy's had an amazing career. Seriously. I mean, he's coming off a win just this past June. I mean, you're talking a month and a half ago or so. Yeah, he's an absolute legend. He's fought, I don't know, just about everybody at 55. So with this win, he's looking to make it 2 in a row. He's got good stand-up. He's got excellent jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's been that way for a while. He's gotten to the point where him and his brother have actually opened a gym. It's called Miller Brothers MMA. And let me tell you, he's beat some really good guys. I mean, he's only lost to very high-level competition. I mean, if you want to talk about guys he's beat, he's got wins over Dwayne Ludwig, who's now one of the best trainers in the world. He trains ex-champ TJ Dillashaw, among other guys. But back to the people that Jim Miller's beat, he's beaten, again, Dwayne Ludwig, Gleison Tebow. He's beaten Charles Oliveira, who's now in the top 5, looking to fight for a title soon. He beat Melvin Gillard. He beat Joe Lozon twice. Joe Lozon is another legend in the sport. He beat Yancy Medeiros. He beat Danny Castillo. He beat Takanori Gomi, who's an absolute monster, legend. He beat Thiago Alves. He beat Clay Guida. I mean, he beat a bunch of good guys. And of course, like I said, he's 36, so he's towards the end of his career. You know, he's looking to put a quick win streak together. for maybe one last title run. But like I said, he's unranked. He's 36. It's not looking good for the big picture, but hopefully he can turn that around. I'm going to be honest with you, like I told you about Chris Weidman, I don't think he can do this. I just think it's too late. He's 36. He's unranked right now. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really, really tough to put a title run together at 36. Granted, he says he's never felt better. He did have a disease that was, limiting his training ability and his strength and all that stuff. But apparently he's cleared up from that. I believe it was Lyme disease that he had for a few years actually. Yeah, I really hope that he gets as far as he would like to get, but in my opinion, I just don't see that happening. But either way, much respect to this guy. This guy is a guaranteed future Hall of Famer. Just guaranteed. There's no doubt in my mind that he will not be in the Hall of Fame. And I just want him to end his career on his own terms. I want him to, when he feels ready to hang up the gloves, then I think then he should be able to say that, But right now, he says he wants to go for one last title run, so okay, let's see what happens. Good luck to him. I wish him all the luck in the world, and I hope everything works out for him because like I said, he's an absolute legend. But yeah, like I said before, he is fighting Vince Pitchell. He is 37 years old. He's from California. He's also unranked. His record is 12-2. He's got 8 knockouts. If you look at his record and how old he is, you realize he hasn't really fought a ton, and he also doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the level of experience or the level of competition that Jim Miller has. But actually, what's funny is a fun fact here is that both guys are coming off a win against the very same person in their last fight. They both beat Roosevelt Roberts, and that's funny because they are now fighting each other. So they both fought Roosevelt Roberts, and now they're fighting each other. That's a cool fact. But yeah, so Vince Pitchell likes to keep the fight standing. However, I believe that Miller feels comfortable anywhere. Like I said before, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He has really good stand-up. So I don't think he will be uncomfortable anywhere in this fight. And let's see what happens, I don't really ever call fights. I don't ever predict fights. So I'm not going to say what I think is going to happen. But we will see what happens in this fight. I think it's going to be a good one. That I do know. I've never seen a Jim Miller fight that wasn't good. So I stand by that, and his career speaks for itself, and his fight history does as well. So I think it's going to be a good one. All right, moving on. We got a light heavyweight bout, which is 205 pounds. You got Magomed Ankalaev, and I probably said that wrong, against Ian Cutelaba. This is actually their rematch. This fight took place, I believe, in February, maybe? Let me think. Hold on a second. February. Yes, February of this year. Magomed Ankalaev. Damn, I can't really. These Russian names are really tough to pronounce. I apologize, but I'm just going to call him Magomed. He stands 6'3". He's 28 years old. He's, again, from Dagestan, Russia. He's got a damn good record of 13-1. He's got 8 knockouts. And like I said before, this is a rematch. In the previous fight, which took place in February, Magomed actually won this fight by TKO. That actually brought him to 4-fight win streak. He won 3 of those 4 by head kick knockout. One of them was to Ian Cutelaba. But Cutelaba stands 6'1". He is 26 years old. He's from the Republic of Moldova. This guy is a tough dude. His record is 15-5. Out of his 15 wins, he's got 12 by knockout. And like I mentioned, his last fight was against Ankalaev, and he did lose by head kick knockout. But before that, he actually knocked out Khalil Roundtree. Now, if you don't know who Khalil Roundtree is, that dude is tough. He's really tough, and he's an up-and-comer. He's an up-and-coming prospect at the light heavyweight division. Look him up if you haven't seen him. He's got some pretty cool highlights as well. His name is Khalil Roundtree. But yeah, Ian Cutelaba knocked him out. So that's a big feather in his cap. That being said, Vegas has Ankalaev. Man, I am just butchering that name. Magomed as the favorite at -300, making Cutelaba the underdog at +240. So we'll see what happens there. If you factor in the previous fight that they had, which, Magomed ended with a head kick knockout, I could understand why he'd be the favorite. I don't know if he's a -300 favorite, but that's what Vegas thinks. We will see if that is accurate once this fight happens on Saturday, August 15th. Okay, moving on to the bantamweight fight between John Dodson and Marab. John Dodson's nickname is the Magician. And Marab's nickname is The Machine. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but I haven't said Marab's last name because I really can't pronounce it. It's tough to pronounce. So I'm just going to call him Marab, which is what most people call him anyway. Going back to Dodson, he's 35 years old. He's from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's ranked number 12 right now. He's got a record of 21-11. He is a former 2-time flyweight title challenger. Both of those times he fought one of the greatest mixed martial artists ever, in my opinion, Demetrius Johnson, and he lost both of those fights by decision. However, he is coming off a win in February of this year, but he's been very inconsistent after losing to Demetrius Johnson twice. He was on a tear before that, but for whatever reason, once he got to Demetrius Johnson, his career kind of went wishy-washy and just had ups and downs. His last 9 fights, he's gone 4-5. 4 wins, 5 losses in his last 9 fights. So like I said, he's been pretty inconsistent after those losses to Demetrius Johnson. So we'll see what happens there. But he is a very, very fast-paced fighter. He's quick on his feet, just excellent footwork. He's a good wrestler, and we'll see what happens. He likes to keep the fight standing. He's, like I said, super quick, and he can hit you from different angles. He's a good fighter. He's exciting to watch. He's quick. I don't know if you heard that before. I haven't said quick yet. Only, 15 times in the last 10 seconds? But yeah, he's a good fighter. Like I said, he's fighting Marab. Marab's 29. He's from Georgia, the country, not the state. He is ranked at number 15. So obviously, if Marab beats John Dodson, he would move into at least the 12th ranking, hopefully. He comes in with a record of 11-4. He's on a 4-fight win streak. He's a really good wrestler. This guy's an excellent wrestler, and his cardio is off the charts. He's one of those guys that likes to grind out his opponents. He likes to, if he can take the fight to the ground, that's where he would prefer it to be, but he's also very comfortable on the feet too. So this is going to be a crazy fight because, like I said, John Dodson is a damn Speedy Gonzalez in there, and Marab is so dominant when he gets people on the ground that it's really hard to keep that guy off of you. But then again, John Dodson is a monster, and he's a magician, as they call him. Once he gets taken down, he's quickly back up. So we're going to see what happens there. I don't know what's going to happen. That's a good fight. But, moving on to a heavyweight. This is a good fight. This one I'm excited about. This is Junior Dos Santos, former champ, against Jairzinho Rosenstreich. Junior Dos Santos' nickname is Cigano. He stands 6'4". He's 36 years old. He's, like I said, a former heavyweight champion. He's from Brazil. He's now ranked number 5. He comes in with a record of 21-7. He's got 15 knockouts. That's big. Of course, heavyweights have a lot of knockouts, but 15 knockouts is a lot. After a 3-fight win streak, he's coming off back-to-back losses. I mean, you can't blame him. He fought the number 2 and the number 3 guy back-to-back. So he lost to Francis Ngannou, and then he lost to Curtis Blades. Tough. That's once you get to that top 5 level, it's really tough to stay there. And you got Francis Ngannou in front of you. Yeah, it's a tough guy to fight. And then you got Curtis Blades, who's one of the best wrestlers the division's ever seen. That's, again, a tough fight. Junior Dos Santos is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but wrestling and jiu-jitsu don't mix sometimes, you know what I mean? So he's looking to get back in the win column after these 2 losses. And he's looking to get closer to that title shot again. He held it for a quick, well, it wasn't actually quick. It was a pretty long time. People thought he was unbeatable at that moment. But yeah, he's trying to get back into that title contention. And he's fighting a big, bad mother effer in Rosenstreich. They call him Biggie Boy. He might not be as tall as Junior Dos Santos at 6'2", but man, he's a big dude. He's 32 years old. He's from Suriname. I don't know if I think it's an African country, Suriname. He trains out of Fort Lauderdale now. He's at Hard Rocks 365, and he's ranked number 6, so he's right behind him. His record is 10-1. He had 9 knockouts. He's coming off his first career loss against Ngannou. That was a first-round knockout. That was a crazy knockout, actually. Ngannou was swinging for the fences on there and just having to catch Rosenstreich's chin and just put him out. But before that fight with Ngannou, he had knocked all of his opponents out except for one. So we'll see how this plays out. This is going to be a good fight. I personally think this fight's going to be mostly a stand-up fight, because Junior Dos Santos is a very good boxer. And Biggie Boy, Rosenstrike, he likes to keep the fight standing. So we'll see what happens here. But actually, Vegas has Rosenstrike as the favorite here at minus 155, making Dos Santos the underdog at 125, plus 125. So we're going to see what happens here. But I think this is going to be a banger. This is going to be a good fight. Junior Dos Santos loves to keep the fight standing. He loves to throw those punches. He'll throw a kick every once in a while, but he's a boxer at heart. So, and Biggie Boy is just a beast, man. He just throws crazy bombs. So I think it's going to be a stand-up fight. If I had to be honest, if Biggie Boy doesn't knock out Dos Santos, I think Dos Santos could win by decision. I don't see him knocking out Rosenstrike. But like I said before, I don't predict. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think it's going to be an awesome fight, and I'm excited for it. So let's move on to the co-main. This is going to be a really good fight. I'm excited for this fight. I know I've been saying that for every fight now, but I'm excited about this co-main event. We got Sean O'Malley, or as they call him, Sugar Sean, taking on Marlon Chito Vera. Sugar Sean is the 25-year-old who stands at 5'11". He's from Montana, but now he lives in Phoenix, Arizona. He is undefeated. He's got a record of 12-0, 8 knockouts. This is going to be a bantamweight fight. That means they're fighting at 135 pounds. Sean O'Malley was discovered in the first season of Dana White's Contender Series. That was back in 2017. He's a flashy type striker. Got some highlight knockouts. If you haven't seen him, just Google Sugar Sean O'Malley, and you'll see all his knockouts. He actually just entered the rankings this past... when did he fight? It wasn't long ago. It was like a month ago. He beat Eddie Wineland, and he was not ranked at the time, and since he beat Eddie Wineland, now he's ranked at number 14. So he hasn't really beat any big names yet. I think Cheeto's going to be his toughest test up until now. But the kid definitely has... Yeah, he definitely has a good future, whether it's going to be a great future or a champion or just a big name is up to him. But he's got a lot of hype behind him. You know, he's got a huge social media following right now. He does a Twitch where he plays video games online. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got a podcast, his Twitter, all that stuff. He's gained some huge traction in the social media world as of late. So, his hype is pretty big right now, and obviously knockouts help. And when you're knocking guys out left and right, that definitely makes it easier. So we'll see how this fight goes against Chito Vera. Let me tell you, man, Chito's no slouch. 27 years old. He stands 5'8" from Ecuador. He trains in California now. I don't know how he's still unranked, but he is. He comes in with a record of 15-6. He's got 5 knockouts, and he's got 8 wins by submission. So after a 5-fight win streak, which were all finishes, he actually ended up losing his last fight, which may be why he's unranked. I guess maybe if he would have won that fight, he would have been in the top 15. We'll see about that. But besides that one loss, man, he's a tough kid. He's a very good striker. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Tough. And let me tell you, he's never been finished, and that's what Sean O'Malley is saying he's going to do. He said he's going to knock him out. So let's see how that turns out. But both of these guys are getting they're both getting better every time we see them. Every time they're in the cage, they get better. Every time they either knock somebody out or submit somebody, they're young kids. They're not kids, but they're young fighters, and they're getting better every time we see them. So that's why I'm so excited for this fight. For one, obviously, Sean O'Malley hasn't fought, in my opinion, any big names yet. Eddie Wineland was a big name when he was in his prime, but he's 30-something years old. He's in his late 30s now, and he hasn't really been relevant recently. No offense to him, but before that, he hasn't fought anybody ranked or any big names yet. So Chito Vera is going to be his first technically name that he's going to fight. So we'll see how that goes. Now, all that being said, hype matters in the fight game because you got a guy who's unranked and you got another guy who was unranked and is now in the top 14 but has got a ton of hype. So he's actually the favorite at minus 300. They got Vera at plus 240 on this one. That's a pretty big difference. Minus 300 to plus 240. I don't know if that's all hype or if he's really, worth the hype. I don't know, but man, that's a huge gap. But like I said, Chito Vera has never been finished. He's a really tough guy. He's hard to beat. And we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, is he going to grind it out? Is he going to stand up with him? Is he going to take him down and submit him? We will see. This is going to be a tough fight for both guys, not just Chito or not just Sean O'Malley. This is going to be a tough fight for both guys. If I had to guess, this is probably the toughest fight of both of these guys' careers. So we'll see. But I'm pumped, and I think this is well placed at the co-main event. I think both of these guys are ready for the limelight. I think they both could be stars. You know, they're both young. They're both up and coming. They're both very good fighters. And like I said, they're both getting better. So this is going to be a good one. And with that, we move on to the main event. The main event. Heavyweight Championship of the World. Stipe Miocic versus DC Daniel Cormier. And this is their third fight. The rubber match. This is, according to them too, both of them, to determine who is the best heavyweight of all time. Reason being, they consider Stipe to be the best heavyweight of all time for two reasons. One, he holds the record for most heavyweight title fights, which is 6, and he holds the record for most heavyweight title defenses, which is 3. He is 37 years old now. He stands 6'4". He's from Ohio, and Stipe brings a record of 19-3 with 15 knockouts. Again, that's a ton of knockouts. Those two records are big, man. Big records to hold. I mean, you're talking about the most title fights and the most title defenses. You know, he's the kind of guy that likes to keep the fight standing. He likes to box. He was a boxer for most of his life, and he also wrestled. So he's a very good boxer, and he's a very good wrestler. I think he's super underrated because there's so many people that outside of the diehard fans that don't really know who he is. But the list of the people that he's beat is crazy. It's insane, all the guys that he's beat. I mean, he's beaten Pat Barry, Roy Nelson, Gabriel Gonzaga, Fabio Maldonado, Mark Hunt, Andrei Arlovsky, Fabricio Verdum, Alistair Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, Francis Ngannou, and DC. That's just some of the guys that he's beaten. That's not all the guys he's beaten. His resume speaks for itself. This guy is a monster. I could see why they could consider this guy the best of all time. Man. But then again, he did lose to DC. So they're 1-1. So I understand why this fight is to dictate or to determine who the best heavyweight in the UFC of all time is. But you know what else is really cool about Stipe? This guy's still a firefighter. He's still an active Ohio firefighter. He works 7 shifts a month. Those are 24-hour shifts. And I guess that's considered part-time because a normal full-timer works 9 24-hour shifts per month. So him working 7 shifts per month makes him a part-time firefighter. But this guy is an active firefighter, and he's the active baddest man on the planet heavyweight champion. That's insane. That's crazy. How could he not be the face of the sport? Or the face of the organization, at least. Anyway, he's fighting Daniel DC Cormier, 41 years old now. Obviously, at the end of his career, he did say he's going to retire after this. He stands 5'11", so there's obviously a 5-inch height advantage there for Stipe. DC is from Louisiana, but he lives and trains in San Jose, California now. He trains at AKA, which is American Kickboxing Academy. He's got a really good record, 22 wins, 2 losses, 10 knockouts, 5 submissions. He's a former Olympic wrestler. He is a former Strikeforce heavyweight Grand Prix champion. He's the former light heavyweight champion, and he's also the former UFC heavyweight champion. This guy is a beast. This guy's won just about everything you can win in the sport. His record was crazy when he got into the UFC, and he kept that going. He went 15-0 before suffering his first loss, and then he went on an 8-fight unbeaten streak, winning and defending both the light heavyweight and heavyweight titles before losing that title, the heavyweight title, to Stipe in August of last year. Crazy record and crazy career so far. So let's see what's going to happen with this fight. If he wins, he might go down as one of, if not the greatest fighter in UFC history. But that's some big shoes to fill because you got, like I said before, you got Anderson Silva. You also have George St. Pierre in there, John Jones can be in that discussion if it wasn't for the steroids. There's a lot of guys that could be in that discussion. So we'll see. But either way, his career is going to be legendary when he retires. Like I said, his resume speaks for itself. He's beaten some ridiculous guys too, and I'm just going to name a couple. Well, more than a couple, but he beat Antonio Silva. He beat Josh Barnett. He beat Frank Mir. He beat Patrick Cummings, Dan Henderson, Anthony Johnson, who obviously is one of the baddest people ever, one of the scariest dudes on the planet. He beat him twice. Anthony Rumble Johnson, he beat him twice. He beat Alexander Gustafsson. He beat Anderson Silva, who, like I said, is considered one of the greatest of all times. He beat Volkan Oezdemir. He beat Stipe, and he also beat Derek Lewis. And that's not all the guys he's beat. Those are just the big names. This guy is an absolute monster, legend. He's fighting another legend, so this is going to be an absolute banger. I'm super pumped for this fight. And like I said, this is supposed to be his last fight as a pro. Hopefully it is, because like I said, he's 41. He was supposed to retire last year at 40, and that didn't happen. So let's hope that he sticks to his word this time and retires at 41, because he's got so much stuff going on outside the UFC and outside the cage. He's a really busy dude, man. He's a father of 2. His wife is pregnant. That's going to be 3 soon. He's a high school wrestling coach. He's a UFC commentator for, 2 or 3 fights a month. He works for ESPN, and he also has a podcast. This guy is a busy, busy dude. So, like I said, this is going to be the one hell of a fight. And I'm super, super pumped for it. Vegas doesn't even know what to do with this fight. They don't know who's the favorite. They don't know who's going to win. They got the odds at minus 110 for both fighters. They don't know what to do with this fight. It's so crazy. Both guys have a finish. It's not like they both went to decision once. No. Both of these guys have a finish in this fight. Daniel finished Stipe in the first round in the first fight. Then Stipe finished DC in the 4th round of the second fight. This is going to be a crazy madness fight. I'm so pumped for this fight. I honestly have no clue what's going to happen. No clue. This is one of those fights that I have no idea. Is DC going to come out and wrestle the hell out of Stipe? Or is Stipe going to dictate the pace of the fight with, height and reach advantage? Is he going to dictate the fight by not being able to be taken down? Is he going to use the body punches again? There's so many questions to be answered in this fight. And that's why I think Vegas has no clue who the favorite is. This is going to be one hell of a fight. I'm so excited for this fight. Whew! Crazy. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Again, this is going to be August 15th, this coming Saturday. It is obviously a pay-per-view event because it's a UFC numbered event, so it's UFC 252. You can bet your ass I'm going to watch this shit. And I really hope you do too. So that's all I got for tonight. Let me know in the comments who you think's going to win between Sugar Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera, and who you think is going to win in the main event. Who's going to become the baddest man on the planet? Who wins the fight between Stipe and DC? I really want to know your thoughts, and I really want to know what you guys think and what the general consensus is about this fight. Because like I said, I am completely lost. I really don't know who's going to win, and I want to know what you guys think. So leave your comments and let me know. I want to give a big thank you to everybody who's listening, everybody who's been with me since the beginning, and anybody who's a new listener. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the support. Follow me on social media. I'm going to put the links to all my social media in the description. As always, I am Juan, and this is your Average Fight Fan. Good night.
Your Average Fight Fan.